Welcome to the Building Interest podcast presented by Leader Bank. In Season 2 of our podcast, we're exploring what it means to be a leader through conversations with leaders from the bank, from within the communities we serve, and from across the banking and technology industries. Each conversation will focus on our guests' personal leadership journeys and provide insights on what it means to be a good leader. In our last episode, we spoke with Leader Bank's Vice President of Retail Banking, Paula Dutchman, and Innovation Team Project Manager, Cindy Perez, to discuss their efforts to lead diversity and inclusion at the bank. Today, I'm joined by Dennis Walker, First Vice President of Strategy and Planning, and Chris Verzone, Vice President and Sales Manager, to discuss the idea of intrapreneurship and building a product from idea to launch. Welcome, Chris and Dennis.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having us. Looking forward to talking through Leader Insurance.
Absolutely. I think it's an exciting time in our history. And actually, Dennis, we'll start with you. You've been here for a number of years. You spent time in, dare I say it, internal audit. You worked in deposit operations. And you've now moved on to this strategy and planning. Can you just tell us a little bit about your path and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, that's great. Again, thanks for having us here. Since I've been here, it's been an awesome experience. As you know, I started with internal audit. Transferred that over to you, so you're doing a great job, so keep up the good work. I had the opportunity to move over to operations and kind of have a little bit of a different career path. Always wanted to see what it was like on the other side of audit, right? Is it more difficult? Is it less difficult? And just kind of get that experience and holistic background. Then they had the opportunity. We started a call center here. And then, we hired Mary, was able to transfer that over to her. Now I'm in strategy and planning and kind of rolls into the idea of starting the insurance company and kind of becoming that startup guy, it sounds like, since I've been here. So it's been an awesome experience.
Awesome. Chris, I understand you came to Leader not with internal audit experience, but with some prior experience relevant to your current role. How did you start your professional journey and how's your career evolved now that you've ended up here?
Yeah, Greg, thank you again for having us on here today. Funny story. I'll sort of give you a little bit of background about how I got into the insurance business. Went to school for accounting. Switched my major up, I think my junior year because everyone said it was, hard to get. It's easy to get a job when you graduate. You can be an accountant. Everyone's looking for accountant. So graduated school.
Oh, so you started doing something else, and then you moved to accounting.
Yep. So I was a management and marketing marketing major, and then moved to accounting because everyone, like I said, everyone said, it's easy to get a job as an accountant. Little did I find out. Started interviewing out of school. Went to school down in Florida. Started interviewing for some jobs, entry-level accounting jobs. Realized that probably wasn't going to be a good fit for me. The 9-to-5 thing, sitting behind a desk every day, it just didn't feel right for me. So I had an uncle that was in the life insurance business. He owned a very successful life insurance brokerage. He set me up with some interviews down in the Tampa area with all the big players, the Northwestern Mutual, Mass Mutual, New York Life. Did all those interviews. Didn't really get the warm and fuzzy. It was more, they really didn't put anything into your career. It was, hey, get licensed. What are you going to do for me type of mentality.
Big box approach.
Exactly. So it didn't really feel like it was going to be a good fit for me. So moved home, worked for the family business for the summer. Came the end of the year and decided it was time to grow up and get a real job. So I walked into funny story. I walked into an open house looking for entry level sort of outside sales position, and looked at the training opportunities. They paid to license you, so it really gave me the feel for they were in your corner. They were going to give you the resources to be successful, rather than just go ahead and hit the pound. What's in it for me? So jumped on board, got licensed, and haven't looked back since.
So was that what pulled you up here to the Massachusetts area?
Yeah, I think I moved home. I decided, Florida wasn't going to be good for me professionally, and it was time to move home. So, I did that and spent about 4 years, sort of cut my teeth in the business, learned the ins and outs of selling, sold property insurance, so home, auto insurance, life insurance, group accounts. And then decided it was time to move on. It was a big corporation, had that big big corporate feel to it. It just didn't feel right. You had your, your employee number. I still remember it was N0205334. I still remember it to this day. And I just knew that, that wasn't for me. I didn't want to sort of have that, big corporate culture feel as I grew up in my career.
So you wanted that more personal.
More personal feel, absolutely. Right. So I walked into an opportunity with a bank-owned insurance agency that had that sort of family feel. The two brothers that were in charge and leading the agency had sold out. I think it was at the time 8 or 9 years before, and they were still running the organization. And I got it just felt right to me. So I made the move. It was sort of scary. It was a change, and decided to make the switch. Came in as a producer, so I it was part of my role was to really work within the bank, so within the mortgage company, the retail divisions, to drive up some of that cross sell business within the bank. When I was interviewing for the role, I remember what I was doing before in my previous life, networking with mortgage brokers and real estate folks and different group accounts to get business. And throughout the interview process, we were talking like what as far as what do we do for business throughout the bank and cross sell, and what relationships do we have with our the mortgage brokers in there and in the retail divisions, and it was non-existent. And I was, amazed after, what I was used to doing and how I was used to getting business, to go ahead and say, what do you mean? We have, 30 retail branch locations. We have, 50 loan originators, and we're not writing any insurance business.
Well, so that kind of, you've been saying this insurance, and here we are on a bank podcast. And that really is the fundamental question for me. And I don't know, Dennis, if you want to jump in here a little bit too, and kind of the sort of the genesis moment of all this. Why does a bank sell insurance, or what's the connecting tissue here that brings it to where insurance is not usually what you think of when you think of a bank, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's just kind of funny how it started. I was in operations at the time, and I was actually taking a class at Stonyard, which is through the ABA and kind of partners with Wharton. And as part of that class, you have to do a final project, and that final project has to be a strategic initiative that is highly likely to be accepted at the bank. So when I was brainstorming with Jay, and we talked about crypto, we talked about a whole bunch of different things, and one of the things that came up was an insurance agency, that they had always wanted to do that. And it started from there, of having to write the business plan. Why should we do it? How are we going to fund it?
So it was kind of a random idea. It wasn't necessarily that there was a clear business need. You mentioned mortgages, Chris. We have a large mortgage division. It's not like they came and said, hey, we need this. This was sort of an out of the box, what can we do, something new, something different, and you fell upon insurance.
It just fell in that, and at the time I wrote the business plan, and it just kind of took off from there. It was able to match that up to mortgage and the different areas within the bank. Just that cross sell with that mortgage is just, it helps streamline, it helps give that customer that holistic experience with the bank as well. And so that was kind of that major driving force was the mortgage side.
So you mentioned the business plan, and you mentioned Jay, and so obviously and Jay is the president of Leader Bank, and you've come to this conclusion. Okay, this is what we want to do. Then what? Okay, so then you make this business plan. Is that a formal process? Is that just you guys sitting around, kicking the can? How does that? How does that come
like
to
I said,
fruition?
we had the plan had to go to the board. Jay reviewed it.
Okay, so there was a lot of formality.
There was a lot of formality. It just turned into this exciting thing, and it turns out anytime you attach an idea to a bank, you have the regulatory compliance, and that took on a life of its own as well.
I was going to ask you that too. You get other departments involved in this process?
A whole bunch of other departments, and that's been the most exciting thing, is always managing a startup within an existing business line is hard. And quick shout out to Sean. It's really difficult to, from a bias perspective, to not put that same expectation on a startup. And I think he's done an awesome job of being able to separate out the mortgage side from a startup kind of feel, but also leverage and synergize the entire process. Yeah, and the reason why Sean was so important is, as the Senior Vice President of Residential Sales, the connection to those, that sales pipeline, the connection to the operations with Alex, the technology with Eric, and even Patrick, every one of them has just been instrumental of getting the process up and running. And not only that, but a shout out, and I'm sure Chris can echo this, to the rest of the bank, right? There's accounting, there's legal, there's HR, there's so many other areas that it's touched, and everyone's had that awesome mindset of making time for this new initiative.
So we talked about Sean and the mortgage department really being instrumental in kind of helping you guys figure out where the business was going. How does that integrate? How does the insurance line of business integrate with the mortgage process?
Yeah, one of the things we were doing when we were picking the tech stack to support the digital agency was the open API connections. We really wanted it to be a seamless experience behind the scenes and for the client experience as well. And I know Chris kind of took off with the building out of it with the mortgage team. Want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I think we had the mindset when we started the opportunity and where we wanted to go and start with the agency was really build it into our processes and have it be a part of that. We do residential mortgages really good, and you're buying a house, well, you need to have insurance, right? So why don't we build a process where we can offer the client insurance?
Does that happen automatically?
So right now it's built into the client has an option to opt in their disclosure.
Okay.
If they do opt in to our insurance offering, all of their information is actually sent over digitally into the insurance rater, and they're able to sort of get quotes on their auto and home insurance. So we're not asking them duplicate questions. We don't have to ask them information we already have. It comes over to us automatically, and that's one of the things that was important is really that innovation team at the bank worked with Eric Prue and his team sort of seamlessly to figure out, okay, we have all this data, we have all this client information. How do we get it over? How do we
scalability?
How do we incorporate it into the insurance piece? So we can make that a seamless transition. And that's really how we went about everything was really, speed and ease of doing business, not only for the client, but internally for our business partners as well.
So the loan client, they can stick with whatever insurance they want, but if they don't want the hassle of going out and finding their own policy and so forth, they can just opt in and you guys will automatically price out an appropriate quote for them, and that happens seamlessly so they can close on their house and have that in place?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the differentiating factors as well is we're really don't want to be like a click to quote. We're not a Geico, right?
Okay.
We're we have licensed local insurance advisors that are going to take the time to sort of review their policies with them, make any coverage recommendations. You're buying $1 million house. You want to make sure that you have the right coverage. So if something happens, you're not wondering. I wonder if this is covered. It's covered because you spent that 15, 20 minutes with somebody going over your coverages, making sure that you're properly insured. And that's really what our mindset is and what we're set out to do is really spend time, educate clients on the insurance buying process as they're in the process of buying their new home.
So that same personal touch. Yep. There you go. Dennis said it too. That same personal touch we tout in our branches and our loan products transcends over into the insurance business.
I think the carriers
Absolutely.
we picked too, they're very high quality regional carriers as well, which is important from a confidence perspective. Would you echo that, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we set out and when we started, looked at what the plan was, one of the important pieces that had to come up was finding really good quality partners that were able to sort of offer insurance products, because we're an insurance agency where we don't underwrite the product, it goes through an insurance company. Right. So we set out to really, what do we have, like what's our client base look like and what carriers are going to be a really good fit, and then we had to sort of pitch our business plan as Leader Bank is here's what we're doing and bring them on as partners. So that was a really big part of the process as well, is really bringing on the right insurance companies that was going to fit what we're doing and our clients.
We're comfortable with our name standing behind the product that we're offering.
And vice versa as well. Absolutely.
So Chris, then now what's it like for you? You're coming in, you obviously, insurance, that's your thing, but you're coming to a new bank, a new team, a new product. What's that like, kind of walking in as the subject matter expert, but no one knows you and you're kind of blind to what's happening, and you got Dennis's big idea here?
Yeah, no, it was exciting. The interview process was pretty long. So I think we started talking about this idea probably six or 7 months before I even started here. The idea of Leader Insurance was here. I had met with Sean and Dennis and Wes and Jay, and just saw all the excitement around it. Everyone was sort of really excited about it. It was this great idea. Everyone was 100% bought into making this work. And it was really exciting for me to, know what I had done before and be able to bring those ideas over to Leader Bank. And like I said, I think I was hooked. I went to coffee with Sean, and I just saw his sort of buy-in for, hey, we want to roll this insurance out, and knowing with what it takes to be successful and to really integrate this into the mortgage side of the house. With his buy-in, this was going to be really special. It was going to have the opportunity to be something really big, and I was sold at that point. I was all on board with, okay, let's go ahead and do this, and I was ready to make the move. And like I said, it was very exciting. And coming over, you get to know everybody throughout. Like I said, it was a long interview process, so I got to know Jay and Sean and Dennis and talking to Wes, and everyone had a really good vibe. Everyone was excited. Everyone worked hard. It was very entrepreneurship. It's, the growth that the bank has done, all the different things that we're rolling out and we were a part of. And I didn't really know too much about Leader Bank. I knew we did mortgages, but the more that you come in and you meet everybody, and it's actually a funny story is I got set up. So I think I started on Monday, and Dennis had set me up with everything, and he was sort of in charge of the insurance, and we sort of had went to lunch, I think probably a week or two before I started, and he came out with this big project plan, and it was a big sort of huge spreadsheet, and it had all these dates on it, and I was like, oh, and I remember I left there, and I was like, holy smokes, what am I getting involved in here? And I was like, you think of it, it's like, okay, we're starting an insurance agency, what do we need to do? We need to, get a few companies, and we'll get a system in place, and we'll have the software, and we'll hire some team members to do it. But holy smokes, there was a lot of extra stuff that had to go in there. And I remember I left that meeting, and I was like, all right, we got a lot of stuff to do.
So things are always a little bit more complex, maybe than.
Oh, absolutely. There was more things on there, and I think throughout the whole process, there was something new that came up every single day. It was, oh, we got to do this. Well, how do we do that? There's not really a playbook for it. It's, you have to sort of, figure it out as you go. There was no, there was a credit issue. There was hey, we need a LexisNexis node ID. How are we going to do that? I don't know. So there was a ton of different things that came up, but having that sort of bringing that, whatever it takes mentality, trying to, find a solution, not really always taking no for an answer, but digging deeper into something and really bringing that, mindset is really what helped really streamline the process. I mean, I started in June, and in 4 months we had, in essence, a soft launch of Leader Insurance with insurance companies on board, with a system in place, a CRM.
That takes some industry trust there too, that you get other companies to sign on and believe in the product as well. And so I want to ask you this. I teased kind of this term intrapreneurship, and yes, I'm well aware it's not a real word. We just kind of made it up for today's episode, right? But this idea of your traditional entrepreneurial story, you're building a business around an idea. In this case, the business, meaning Leader Bank, already existed, and we're building an idea inside or within the confines of that company. Do you think that's somehow easier because you have infrastructure already around you, or is it actually more difficult? Are there some unexpected constraints to being able to build a business line new within a company?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the resources that Leader Bank has and the willingness of the team to help out made all the difference in the world. We were, I think it was, if it was Monday, it was, meeting with the legal team. Tuesday, it was compliance. Wednesday, it was marketing, and it was all over again. So it was, having those resources available to launch a business, to get the expertise. I know Brooke and the legal team, they must have reviewed, 30 contracts. And there was no there was no ifs, ands, or buts. It was you send it over on a Monday. It'd be here's some things we got going, and it'd be by Wednesday we'd have those answers back. So I think really to rely on the team in all the different areas, human resources, legal, compliance. I mean, there was we started from scratch, so we had to onboard systems, and Larry and his team were great with going through all the different vendors we had to use for our management system, our CRM, our phone system. So it was just a little bit of everything.
Anytime in there you kind of hit a wall and you hit an unexpected obstacle and you were
Sure.
like, oh boy, maybe this isn't going to work. What stopped you along the way?
I think you're always going to hit those hiccups, especially when you're implementing a brand new, 3 new systems with a couple of people who have never used the system before. So again, leveraging those partnerships internally was huge to get through those. But I don't think that it wasn't that, why did we do this? There wasn't any of that. Like, we knew what our end goal was. We're doing it. We're going to get through it. And we knew that the model that we teased out was going to be organic. We had to do it the leader way. That was the most important.
Can you lend some color what you mean by the leader way?
Yeah, so before we had started to interview Chris, we had teased out, should we buy someone? What's really the business model we want to do? And really, at the end of the day, just like Chris was mentioning before, our growth rate, it's been organic. And for us, it didn't make sense to go down the purchase pass.
This intrapreneurship, we design it, we grow it.
We're going to design it, we're going to grow it. It's going to be our way. We're going to focus on the client experience. We're going to focus on our internal relationships. It's that intrapreneurship concept where we're not just starting a business that's out on its own.
See, this word's going to take off. Everybody's going to be talking about intrapreneurship going forward.
And I think that was the mindset we had is when we did this and we sort of set out. It was we looked for solutions that were going to fit what we were trying to do, and that's what we went about when we looked at different vendors and different technology and resources that we were going to have. We had like a specific end goal in mind, is we wanted to make the referral process internally as seamless as possible. We wanted to make it easy for those internally referring us. We wanted to be able to take the information that we had, our customer information, and be able to get it over to the insurance and really just sort of streamline the process.
So in a way, maybe it was easier doing it within an existing company, and I kind of asked about that earlier, and constraints and things, because you have your vision of how you want to do it, and you're not buying someone else's off-the-shelf product that doesn't work the way you want it to work. You get to build it the way you want it to work.
Yeah, it's that digital focus kind of approach with a modern tech stack behind it. With quality people behind it to lead it. That's kind of that modern approach that we're looking for.
And I think that goes into really the leadership pieces is making this work is really getting into bringing the right team members on board as well.
Right.
We can.
How many folks do you have on the team now?
We have 4 team members so far, and we'll continue to grow as we grow and evolve. But I think the number one thing is really finding the right people that bring that excitement. Whenever we're interviewing, we've interviewed anybody, the common theme that we ask at the end is, do you think that person was excited to start something from scratch? And really, that's been so important. Is we want people that are, we want to be excited to come to work every day. We want to have that, whatever it takes mindset. Because there's, when you're a startup, everybody's, wears a whole bunch of different hats.
And you need ideas. You need people who are excited to pitch new ideas and come up with new directions if things aren't going the way you want.
I mean, absolutely. And everything's, it evolves on a weekly basis. We're making changes. On paper, it looks great. Hey, we're going to do this, this, and this. And then, 3 or 4 days later, it's like, okay, let's fix this, and maybe we're going to change this because we can do it a little bit better. And I think that goes to really our approach to doing this and why it's going to be successful is, we're able to bring the right people on board, to really fit sort of our culture and mindset of, bringing that whatever it takes team mentality to the table. And I'm excited about that.
So guys, now we've launched Leader Insurance. Can you tell us a little bit high level what that really is and what your department offers?
Yeah, so Leader Insurance is a independent insurance agency licensed in all of New England. We specialize in personal insurance and commercial property insurance. Personal insurance being, auto insurance, home insurance, boats, umbrella, and then and commercial property insurance.
Do I have to be a Leader Bank customer, or can I just call you up and say, I need to talk insurance?
Nope, you can call us up and talk insurance, and we'd love to talk to you.
So how do I do that?
So our phone number, 781-896-2050.
So we said we're here to talk about leadership, and I'm looking at you, Dennis, because this isn't the first big idea you've had at the bank, right? You kind of mentioned the call center earlier. Let's explore that a little bit. Was that a similar build out in terms of you kind of had an idea and you built a business case, or was it a completely different?
There was a business case. We were growing, and it's that focus on client service, I think, really became apparent. And just from a pure bodies perspective, from an operations, like, we couldn't pick up the phone and do the job at the same time. So, it was right time, right place. Talking with Jay, talking it through. There was a similar need on the loan servicing side. And it just kind of took off from there.
People hear call center and they hear, oh, I'm going to be in a hold queue for an hour. How did we manage to do that differently?
Yeah, that was a great point. I mean, one of the first things that we talked about was pick up the phone. Is we needed to staff and train accordingly to be able to answer the customer's phone call the first time. And we were really lucky to get Mary, who had run a call center and an operations position before, and she really brought her expertise into that position. And, again, similar to insurance, I picked the tech stack behind it, but really found that right person to really take it off. And from there, and I mean, I think, if you look at our numbers, they're still picking up the phone within less than 30 seconds of our call.
Awesome.
Mary's still doing an amazing job leading that team over there. And that's really, that client service is, started from that idea, but now it's like permeated the entire bank of just obsessing on that client focus. So,
would you say was that fundamentally a similar process? Like, did you also have to have buy-in from different departments and the
sure.
board and all that? This was a whole process. So you had some experience coming into insurance, kind of having learned from the call center.
Yeah, just
how to set something
how
up.
many people we're going to need, how are we going to staff it, how are we going to train them, what's the technology, how long is that going to take, how much is it going to cost, and figuring that whole thing out too. So started off kind of in that vein.
So on the personal side, I mean, I'm curious if either you could share kind of how do you discover that this was where your career would take you? I mean, obviously you talked a little bit about Liberty Mutual and thing, but that was working for someone else, right? And what we're describing here is, yes, you work for Leader Bank, but ultimately you're creating this department. You're working sort of on your own initiative here. Was that a conscious choice? Did you just decide one day that you want to have this spirit? How did that come about?
Yeah, no, for me it was a no-brainer. It brought almost a level of excitement back to, I was doing I was comfortable in my position I was with for about 9 years. And when this was brought up, I don't even feel like I'm working anymore. It's a true level of excitement to get this going, see where it goes. Every day, I get up and, you look at your emails and it doesn't even feel like work. So it's been super exciting. To see it grow, to see how far we've come in the 6 months, and to think about where we're going to be in the future, because we've got there's so many different verticals that this can take off and places that can go. It's going to be exciting to see as we move on. And for me it was the opportunity to join an organization like Leader Bank. And to start boots on the ground with the insurance piece was really exciting.
Yeah, I think I can echo the same thing. Is one of the things I think Leader Bank does really well is recognize talent that almost that person may not even know is there, and give them the opportunity to explore that talent with some guidance. And I'd say, and we've talked about this offline, Greg, is, when I joined audit, 10, 15 years ago, one of the things that I loved about audit is it was never the same thing every day. You're always looking at a different business line, a different topic, and that's sort of that same theme that I've taken throughout my career path. It doesn't matter what the topic is. I just always like something new, something that I think is going to add value to the organization. And that's why I think I love my position right now. Is it just one day I'm helping out insurance with something small, and the next day it's how do I tease out a new business opportunity, or how do I help something internal, like a project internally, be streamlined or whatever. But it's the concept is there's something new every day, but the goal is to add value to that, to the organization, and something, every day is not the same. And that's just something that I've kind of enjoyed through the course of my career.
I've heard it said that one trait of a good leader is the ability to inspire others. And you both seem very inspired. Any particular leaders that kind of shaped you along the way, that helped you find that inspiration that you have now?
I think for me, I grew up and played athletics, and athletics played a big role in my career and sort of shaped who I was. I had a grandfather that was an athletic director for 35 years, played 3 sports in high school, went on to college, and I had a couple of really good coaches. It instilled some really good leadership values at a young age. And so I've really...
Commitment and other things like that.
Commitment, dedication, hard work,
Yep.
Motivation. There's no substitute for those things, and I think that goes into to leadership and sort of, rolling up your sleeves and just getting the job done, being dedicated, having like passion, being like inspired, and that goes to like good leadership. You can't. You gotta be passionate about what you're doing. You gotta be inspired. You gotta show up to work every day like that, because that resonates with the team as well. If you're not having a good day, or you're sort of down, and you can't let that sort of affect your performance. You got to really sort of come out and bring that energy to work every day. And I think that's a really good trait of a good leader. And like I said, I had some really good coaches that sort of inspired those things in me as I grew up, and have taken those along the way. And I think that sort of helped me become successful. And there's life lessons that I've learned along the way that have been really good looking back on, that are some funny things that it was awesome.
No, I love that, because, sometimes we talk about someone being a born leader, and maybe some people are born to be leaders, but I think a lot of us just sort of learn it along the way and have those inspirational moments and those coaches and things and those life experiences that maybe at the time you never thought, when you were doing sports and you were learning these sort of attributes, that one day you'd be sitting there and actually subconsciously using them and becoming a leader in your own right. Which... Do you see yourselves as leaders in your own right now? You're not taking so much inspiration from others, maybe you're passing it on now?
Yeah, I feel like, for me, on the work ethic side, it was my parents. It was just always you're helping out. It was, in the backyard raking, shoveling, whatever. But it was always you're working, and
some humility there too.
Humility there too. But it's also that you feel a sense of accomplishment too after it's done. And then I've been very spoiled throughout my entire career, that I've had really, really good managers, a couple of, ones that you don't want to emulate, but for the most part, especially since I've been at Leader Bank, that really take an interest in your career path, what you want to do, what's important to you. And, at different points in my career path, I've learned different things from those managers, and call them mentors too, to get to this point, and been very lucky.
Any particular examples you might want to
share?
share?
Yeah, I mean, EQ versus IQ.
Can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, so like the emotional side of things versus intelligent. Like you got to be able to lead people and work with people, know what motivates people, versus just being the smartest person in the room. So that's been incredibly important when you're leading people. And then I'd say the other big thing that I learned, in my initial job out of school, it was just focus on what you're doing, keep your head down and do it. But when I had moved on to a different position, it was, this manager had opened up my eyes to say, try something new, learn something different. When I was in audit, we really kind of focused on one line of business, but this was a smaller group. So we had to learn IT, we had to learn financial, we had to learn operations audit, compliance audit. So that kind of was that beginning of that, hey, there's other stuff, and I can learn other things, and gives you that focus and start.
And I think, Greg, for me too as well, my leadership role has sort of evolved. I came over, I made the switch as a producer, as a sales person, and when I made my move, I grew into a leadership role. It was, okay, Chris,
so you were not a sales manager?
No, I grew into that role.
Gotcha.
So I came in as sort of boots on the ground, hit as a sales rep. It worked out really well, and it's like, okay, Chris, how do we go ahead and how can we grow this? How can we expand this? How are we gonna add to the team? How are we gonna compensate the team? So I really grew into my leadership role. It wasn't, I wasn't hired as it. It was, I started really. It was really started on its own from the individual success I had that turned into a team success.
So you can take that individual success, share your lessons, share your motivation and your inspirations along the way, and hope that then translates into the next.
And I didn't have, certainly didn't have all the answers. I didn't interview people. I didn't, I learned all of that. Didn't motivate people. It had come, naturally for different things throughout life, but there was no like real playbook for it. I grew into that role and did things along the way to shape it with different different leadership classes, and I had different mentors, which helped out a lot. But I really grew into a leadership role, and was able to sort of take that and take it over here to Leader Bank. But I wasn't hired into a role. I sort of grew into that particular role.
No, that really resonates with me too. And you mentioned being passionate about things, and it's kind of like before this, I had never done any kind of interview type of things, podcasts, anything like that. And I realized that it's fun and it's interesting, it's engaging. And now I look forward to these and I enjoy sharing these moments, and it's no longer this mystery. And it's just kind of what you describe. You might not have started out there, but you kind of evolve into that. So now for our listeners, there's hundreds, probably thousands of books and articles and resources and things out there about, being in a leadership role. Any particular advice or kind of an aha moment or a lesson in your life or something that you want to share as kind of a parting idea of my personal story as a leader? This is what I want.
Things that I've sort of always kept close to me, like as far as from a leadership perspective, teamwork is important. When you say teamwork, it's really being available for the team members. So you can't sort of lock yourself in your office.
You can't manage from afar.
You can't manage from afar. You really have to know what's going on. Roll up your sleeves. Know what their roles are. Let them know that you're there to help them succeed. Whatever, and sort of bring that whatever it takes mindset. You want to know that you have their best interests in mind, as well as be visible. You want to let the team know that you're in it with them. You can't expect them, hey, you're on an island on your own. You don't want that. You got to sort of be visible. And then the last thing is, be accountable. You have to be accountable yourself. You can't, pass blame onto anybody else. A problem comes across your desk. You got to sort of, hey, how am I going to fix this? So
it goes back to being part of the team. If the team has a problem, you have to be part of the problem.
Absolutely, and you got to be part of the solution.
Exactly.
And I think that's what that's those things with the passion and high energy that you bring to the table every day. I think those are 4 things that I've always sort of keep in the back of my mind. With whatever we're doing, with whatever I'm doing, I'm always thinking about those things. And those are 4 things that I've carried with me for I'd say probably the last 6 or 7 years that I try to keep in the back of my mind. Whatever, if we're making a decision or doing something or building out a team or talking to a team member, those things that I go back to.
I would echo the same thing. I mean, I think building trust within that organization, being approachable. I would add having that resilience mindset, never giving up. It helps your team show that you're there for them for the long term. And the one thing that I always like to do is as you're coaching people and as people are growing up through the whatever path they take, always make sure that you instill on them to make sure that they pass that forward, right? Because I think a big quality of a leader is building other leaders. Yep. And if you're giving that coaching out, make sure that they do the same thing. It's like that humble aspect to it.
Definitely, and that keeps it going. Well, thank you both so much for coming in. This was really fun and interesting. I loved hearing about it, and I didn't know a lot of the background. I knew some of it because you guys came to me and talked to me about audit considerations when we talked about contracts and compliance and things. But a lot of that background, that's really impressive. And thank you so much for coming on.
Greg, appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you, Greg.
For more information on today's subject, visit leaderbank.com. In addition to past episodes, you can also find our corresponding blog entries for more insights. This podcast is a production of Leader Bank N.A., Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC, NMLS number 449250.
Leader Insurance, LLC is a wholly owned subsidiary of Leader Bank N.A. Insurance products offered through Leader Insurance, LLC are not FDIC insured and are not bank guaranteed. They are not a deposit and are not insured by any federal government agency.